All right, welcome everyone to another edition of Spider NIL Insights. Today I'm excited to welcome Laura Thompson, who's the Assistant Dean of the Robbins School of Business here at the University of Richmond. Dean Thompson oversees the undergraduate student experience for nearly 900 business majors and minors. She works at the intersection of academic and student affairs, from advising and degree progress to overall student development. She teaches business communication as well, where she helps students build their professional communication skills and personal brand. Dean Thompson plays a key role in preparing Richmond students for success both on campus and well beyond it. And I'm grateful for her joining us today. So welcome, Dean Thompson.
Thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here, and hopefully provide some good answers to some of your hard questions.
Absolutely. So I'll dive right into those hard questions. The first, just kind of set the stage, is how do you define personal brand for a student athlete or a student in practical terms?
Yeah, practical terms is an interesting one. So to kind of just to give, I guess, a definition, it essentially is your personal brand is who you are. And or aspirationally who you want to be. So in that kind of genuine, authentic self, we all know that we like to be around people who we feel like aren't fake, who are true, like their colors run true. And so that's kind of your goal, is to figure that out about yourself and have that as your personal brand. Most of that, I think, revolves around the way that you present yourself, communicate yourself, and you mentioned the class that I teach, the business communication. That's a class that's required for all of our Robbins School of Business majors, but it's also a class that's open to any student at the university to take if they wish. And it is one that helps you, I think, begin to see yourself as a brand, and then how that carries professionally, beyond college and even while in college. And so I think that's why it's an important part of our conversation are the student athletes. So essentially, kind of your brand is, how do you present yourself? What do you believe about yourself, and what do you want others to believe about you? Sometimes I think, as I always think back to, okay, when I was 18, which is usually the age of the start of our student experience here, and even on through into 22, like, where was my head? What was I thinking about myself? That transition from high school to college. And so in my class, we do an activity where we kind of focus in on our communication styles and try to figure out some, like, what is your communication style? And then once we've identified that about ourselves, then we look at some companies that students interact with and look at what is their slogan, so essentially, like, what is the brand they're trying to put out there for people to be kind of catching on. And so, if I say, like, Nike, if I say to you, Mark, what's Nike's slogan? You're of course going to tell me,
Just do it.
just do it. So that tells that communication style that Nike wants to put forward is that kind of bold, action oriented. And so then, we talk about others like McDonald's, that's just loving it. That's kind of more of an expressive style. And then you think about, not something students often interact with, but their families probably have some sort of insurance. So thinking about State Farm insurance, that's like a good neighbor. State Farm is there. That's kind of that sympathetic, so you just kind of think which of those resonates with you. And then once you've sort of identified what's your communication style, what are some company slogans, then for you coming up with that personal slogan, that person is like, it begins, I think, when you have something that you're like, okay, that sounds like me. It sort of helps to gel your personal brand. And so that's sort of a kind of walk you through to get to sort of practically what can that mean for you. Yeah.
Yeah, makes total sense. So as thinking about beyond, and you were mentioning, when you're in high school coming to college and identifying and figuring out, your voice and what your brand is, how should student athletes um, align their NIL presence with their long-term career goals while they're here at the University of Richmond or in college in general?
Yeah, I think kind of starting off with that, okay, if your brand reflects who you are, it also then your kind of your, I guess, moving forward with that brand is then, what do you want to stand for? How do you wish to be seen? It kind of all connects together. And then that's where I think, when you think about both who you are and therefore what you have to offer, that's then where that kind of NIL, what is that, like how can that fit together, I guess, in that world. And ultimately I'd say within that, what do you want to give of yourself to others? And that kind of leans into what is your purpose in this world, which is a huge thing to talk about as a person, and especially as an 18 to 22, 23, 24-year old. But that purpose is, I think, what you also should carry with you into long-term goals. You and I have both chosen careers where we are in a space to help people and to help people navigate different stages of their existence in college, and so we found our purpose in that. And I think that, so that touched on us with what our personal brand aligns with our long-term goals. But I think especially as a student athlete, something that I find is interesting is that so much of being a student athlete is you've been taught to win. And when you win, somebody has to lose. And yet, when you're heading into your professional existence, it's almost like there needs to be a shift to it. So your best, most successful people are people who are winning and winning.
Mhm.
So you're looking for those win-win opportunities. And so I think that's something that when you shift your mindset for being a student athlete into that NIL kind of mindset, it is like, if I'm helping this company, how's this company helping me? Or how am I collaborating with different individuals? It starts to move you into that win-win, which is what then helps you succeed long term. So
Sure, sure. Um, so you mentioned in teaching, professional communication. So from a professional communication standpoint, what is the biggest mistake that you've found students make when presenting themselves publicly?
no, it's funny. Well, we've all probably made mistakes like this, but I think often maybe that, when you think about your maturity at the age of our student athletes now, so often I think we have to come off as extra confident and knowing everything and I've got this. And that, turning that up turns down your openness to learning and your curiosity and your humility. So I think finding that middle ground between coming off as confident, but also the curiosity that comes within that space, or, being feeling strong and these are the skills I bring, but yet these are the skills that I want you to learn from you. And also, I think, what do I bring to the table, but what do I still have to learn? So I guess that mistake is, I think, forgetting that there's a middle ground. You don't have to go to extremes when you express yourself. And that openness, I think, is where I find that students, they feel like, oh, I shouldn't admit that I don't know something in an interview, or I shouldn't say I don't know in the interview. And I think to remind them that in that space that it's quite okay to say I don't know, but to try to go get the answer and follow up, and that sort of openness to continuing to learn, because often that's what employers are looking for. They're not really expecting that you know everything. And I think you can communicate that. When you communicate that, it also it represents your authentic self, that we don't know everything. Was that sort of the kind of answer you were thinking that?
Absolutely. And it's so I think it hits it so it resonates. It's so true that you shouldn't know everything heading into a job interview, but you should be willing to learn and to grow and to show kind of a competency, but um, willingness to learn what it is you need to learn to do the job. Um,
Yeah,
so that's great. Thank you.
because you and I know we're always learning every day.
For sure.
So
I don't know much. So for you mentioned before, which I thought was really interesting, the mindset shift from kind of athlete to professional and winner loser versus win. For someone who feels uncomfortable promoting themselves, and we live in a world where, a lot of people feel they need to be promoting themselves on social media, et cetera, especially in this NIL space. If someone feels a little uncomfortable with that, what mindset shift would you recommend for them?
I Yeah, I've had this conversation with students before who, just say, you know, like, this doesn't feel like me, right? And so I think that when hear that, I think that they're being very self-focused, which is understandable because developmentally that's where you are at 18 to 22. But to remind them to like, let's not think about you for a second here. Let's think about others who in your world, people you admire currently, people you respect, people who've invested in you to help you get to where you are, whether it's coaches or parents or, family friends, teachers, professors, that kind of thing. And to think about what they gave you and then to think about, okay, now it's your turn to sort of extend that benefit to somebody else and think who now you might be ready to inspire and ready to encourage. So to kind of take it off the self focus and more on the how can you be giving, that sort of spirit of giving, I think sometimes diffuses that and also helps the mindset set shift.
Yeah, that's great. For sure. What one more question for you. Um,
Sure.
so if we all like actionable steps and things we can do in the immediate term to start moving forward. So if a student athlete wants to strengthen their professional brand starting today, what's a first easy step that they could take?
First easy step for a professional brand would be one of the tools that we have to kind of put ourselves out there that everybody kind of gets sort of on an even playing field. And I would say it's a tool like LinkedIn.
Mhm.
When you have a tool like LinkedIn, there's of course your profile picture, and then you list, your educational background, your experiences, your work experience, your interests, that kind of thing. We here at the University of Richmond in our technology studio, as students can go and sign up to have their headshots taken. So most of our student athletes have their headshots, their team headshots, and maybe that seems like something they want to do. They want to take a picture in their uniform. I don't discourage that. But if they feel like they really want to have their image be a little different, maybe more professional or more a marketing side, um, then our technology studio is a great resource for that. You can pick your backdrop, you can bring different, I joke and say costume changes. You can have a more casual look, you can have one in your uniform, you can have one in something that's maybe a little more hip, depending on what you want. So that's a good first step, actionable, easy. LinkedIn kind of walks you through how to do it. Your resume is the next step. We have career services here on campus. That's a wonderful resource, and they can help students, especially student athletes, like frame what is it that you want to highlight about that. Often student athletes worry like, oh, I spent so many summers doing travel sports, or I've spent so much time training that I maybe haven't dialed into some of the uh, job experiences that maybe my peers have. But I think to help career services really can help student athletes capitalize on that. Um, Sneakily, I'd say that you need to take a critical eye to any social media you have to make sure it's kind of cleaned up and looking more professional. So, whether that be bathing suit pictures or pictures of you working on your muscles in the gym, or that might not be as professional an image as you want to put out there. So and then this is I'll give a push for this is a silly thing. I talk to a lot of students about this thing I like to call the Velcro theory. And my Velcro theory is that, Velcro is very sticky, right? And so I say that, think of yourself as covered in Velcro and then go and talk to so many people that you can, professionals, professors, friends. And then with each conversation, you have so many things. Like even you and I talking today, we've talked about so much, but so many things. And I say when you walk away from that, think about what are the one or two things that kind of stuck to you, that stuck to the Velcro. And those are the things that your kind of true, authentic self wants you to listen to and wants you to kind of carry forth. And so um, that's what I say, to be just kind of open to going and talking with different people, even if they don't align with necessarily what you're thinking you want to do. There's something to be learned there. So again, to find out what resonates and sticks.
Thank you, Dean Thompson. And that's I know it can be overwhelming for folks just to get started and even, going about looking at LinkedIn and knowing as a reminder to our student athletes just how many resources we have here on campus that you highlighted and people like you who are so willing and wanting to help and assist, and so never to hesitate or think that you're being it's an imposition to ask. It's very important to put yourself
So
out,
true.
make sure you're
Yes,
leveraging those resources we have. So Dean
exactly.
Thompson, thank you so much for everything today.
You're welcome.
Anywhere, any place our student athletes or anyone listening to this can go to look at the resources we have. Is there a website that's best for folks to visit?
I think our career services website is
Okay.
great. We partner with something called Handshake, and that has not only the job postings for internships and jobs, but also just kind of different articles to read. And I think, within our career services office, there are many advisors, associates, and they each have different specialties. So again, you can kind of meet with different people and kind of see what matches you. I think that's definitely I know you have folks who are assigned to athletics, but you don't have to be limited to just those. So yeah, I do think that that's a good starting resource and one that evolves, whether you walk in as a first year student or even as a senior, even as an alum, if you decide, even as an alum, you're ready to switch jobs, you can circle back and talk with folks in our career services office. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dean Thompson. Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
All
Good to talk
right.
to you.
Have
Thank
a
you,
good
Mark.
day. Bye bye.